As we watch Russell Patterson make some sketches, I'd like to remind you that the expression pinup first came into use during World War II. Illustrations such as this achieved such popularity that every major artist in America was asked for drawings to be sent overseas.
Before the world knew her as Hollywood's ultimate dream girl, before millions of soldiers carried her image into war, Rita Hayworth was simply an ambitious young actress posing on a satin-covered bed for a Life magazine photographer who had no idea he was about to capture one of the most defining images of the entire 20th century.
Pinup pictures. Did they raise military morale or lower moral standards? America could not decide.
The photo that would rocket her into legend wasn't planned, polished, or even technically perfect. In fact, Bob Landry, the photographer behind the iconic pinup, would later admit that the shot everyone fell in love with was an accident. His flash went off too brightly, creating a shadowy silhouette behind Hayworth's body. Instead of ruining the picture, it gave it an edge of mystery, a softness wrapped in danger, an allure that felt both intimate and powerful. It was the kind of mistake only a star could transform into magic, and Rita Hayworth in 1941 was right on the cusp of becoming the star America didn't yet realize it needed. She was red-headed, luminous, and photographed kneeling on satin sheets in a white silk nightgown trimmed with black lace.
This one here, out on the set of Salome, got him doing a jitterbug. Is this true?
Well, no, he got me doing it.
Oh, I see.
Because he loves it.
Well, then that brings up
He's a beautiful dancer.
Her posture was coy, but her expression wasn't. There was a confidence there, a subtle invitation mixed with defiance. The picture was sensual without crossing the line, striking a balance that only the greatest pinup images managed to pull off. It was glamorous, it was innocent, and it was dangerously captivating. No one knew then that the world was only months away from tearing itself apart, and that this image would become a lifeline for millions of men heading into the unknown. Landry spent the day photographing her, but even he admitted that the most transcendent moment happened when another man in the room, Columbia Pictures Hollywood correspondent, looked at Rita and said, "Take a deep breath." She did, and it changed everything. Her shoulders lifted, the lace fell just right, her expression shifted into something timeless, and Landry pressed the shutter. That was the frame. That was the photograph life chose. That was the moment Rita Hayworth stopped being a rising actress and became a phenomenon. When the issue came out, America took notice. Within 4 months, Pearl Harbor was attacked, and suddenly the photograph, the silk, the lace, the soft shadow, was no longer just a publicity shot. It became a symbol of home, of beauty, of the lives soldiers hoped to return to. Men folded the page into their pockets, hung it in barracks, taped it inside footlockers, and pinned it to the sides of their bunks. By the end of the war, more than 5 million copies of that single image were sold. It wasn't just admired, it was cherished, carried into trenches, foxholes, and troop transports like a reminder that not everything in the world had turned violent. To prove how deep the admiration went, the US Navy gave her a title that combined humor and desire in a way only wartime culture could. The redhead we would most like to be shipwrecked with. The only person who sold more pinups than Rita was Betty Grable, whose famous over-the-shoulder pose took the top spot. But emotionally, culturally, visually, Rita Hayworth was the face of longing, of escapism, of hope. Her image became the companion soldiers held onto when reality grew too dark. But what made Rita Hayworth different wasn't just the photograph, it was what she represented. Unlike other early pinup stars who had carefully constructed public images designed entirely around seduction, Hayworth managed to be glamorous while still seeming human. She had a softness that didn't feel manufactured and a strength that felt lived in. That combination was magnetic. It made her the perfect bridge between the ordinary and the unattainable. She wasn't just a fantasy, she was a reminder of everything familiar. comforting, and worth fighting for. Hollywood certainly recognized it. Her star exploded. In 1941, when that live photo was taken, she was filming You'll Never Get Rich, a movie that helped cement her status as one of the decade's defining screen icons. A few years later, she delivered the performance that would become her signature role in Gilda, with posters screaming, "There never was a woman like Gilda," and audiences believed it. On screen, she was fire and velvet, the ultimate fusion of seduction and pain, strength and vulnerability. But what most people forget today is that Rita Hayworth's wartime legacy extended far beyond being a pinup. She didn't just pose for morale, she helped build it. She volunteered with the Naval Aid Auxiliary. She performed at the Hollywood Canteen, serving meals and dancing with servicemen who would later pin her image to their bunks. She traveled to more than 300 cities to support war bond drives, raising millions of dollars. She toured military hospitals, shook hands with wounded soldiers, and sat beside beds of men who couldn't believe that Rita Hayworth, the Rita Hayworth, had come to speak with them. She didn't have to do any of that, but she did, and soldiers noticed. That's why in 1946, when she learned that her iconic pinup had been plastered on the atomic bomb tested at Bikini Atoll, she was horrified. It was the ultimate contradiction. The image meant to remind men of home, love, and survival had been turned into a symbol of destruction. The military didn't ask permission. They simply took the most famous woman in the world and taped her to the weapon that would change history. It revealed the dark side of being a cultural symbol. Once your image becomes bigger than you, you lose control over how the world uses it. And Rita Hayworth, more than most, lived with that loss of control long after the war ended. Her off-screen life was bruised and complicated in ways her fans rarely saw. She married 5 times, including a highly publicized and troubled marriage to Prince Ali Khan. She battled alcoholism, endured emotional and relational turmoil, and later faced the devastating decline caused by Alzheimer's disease, at a time when the condition was so poorly understood that even she didn't know what was happening to her. Yet ironically, even in illness, she contributed something enormous. Rita Hayworth's diagnosis brought global attention to Alzheimer's. Her suffering launched research initiatives, funding drives, and public awareness campaigns that would help millions in the decades to come. When she died in 1987, President Ronald Reagan, who would later face the same disease, honored her for the courage she showed in public and private life. In one of her clearer moments, Hayworth told an interviewer, "Whatever you write about me, don't make it sad." And maybe that's the most revealing line she ever spoke. She didn't want to be defined by tragedy. She didn't want pity. She understood grief, but she also understood beauty, not the kind captured on satin beds and black lace, but the kind that exists behind the camera, behind the glamour, behind the icon. That's why uncensored, unretouched, unfiltered photographs of Rita Hayworth still hit differently today. They reveal the real magnetism she possessed, the kind that didn't need Photoshop, perfect lighting, or a public relations machine. Her appeal wasn't in how little clothing she wore, but in how she carried herself. Confidence that wasn't loud, seduction that wasn't forced, a gaze that suggested she knew the world wanted her but refused to let it define her. She was elegance and rebellion wrapped in the same silk gown. She was Hollywood royalty before the world even knew what royalty looked like. And she was, without question, the pinup girl who shaped an entire generation's idea of beauty. Because while many actresses posed for the camera, only Rita Hayworth made the camera feel like it was falling in love.